Hi everybody, this is Lino Tadros again, and in this second one for MCP, we're gonna see, instead of using the standard I/O, we're gonna use the StreamableHttp protocol. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I am back. This is the code we've written for the standard I/O. Well, I don't want to continue writing another MCP client in here for, it's gonna be a pretty salad code, will be difficult to read. Let me do a little bit of refactoring in here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take all that code in here. We'll say Control C this guy, or X out of here. Okay, sounds good. And I would like to create a function that will end up calling this puppy. So we'll come in here, we'll say await, and we will say add file system MCP server. All right. And I will need to pass it the kernel builder as well. So we'll say, let's go ahead and pass. I don't need a config in here, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, look at that. Copilot added too much stuff, and I don't need any of that. All right, sounds good. So I'm just going to create this new function. It's called add file system. You can call it whatever you want. Just pass the kernel builder because we're going to need that. Now, let's go ahead and right click on it, or just say quick fix, and say generate the method. And all the way at the bottom, it will create a brand new method for us that will have the kernel builder being passed to it. And whatever code that I've actually just cut into the clipboard, I'll put it in here. So now we're in pretty good shape. So now in my main in here, when all that stuff actually runs on the main, whenever it comes time to run this code, there it is, add file system MCP server, it will do the whole thing. So now we would like to add the second one. The second one will be, it could be, like I say, Figma, or PostgreSQL in Azure, or the Azure server itself, or DevOps, or Actions for GitHub, or the entire GitHub. Well, let's go ahead and do the GitHub one because it has a lot of different tools in it as well. So let's get back to the site for GitHub for the Model Context Protocol, and let's take a look exactly what is the sample says we need to be sending to this puppy. All right, let's go down a little bit, and we'll go to the G's again. We'll find the GitHub one right there. All right, and let's get some hints in here of what needs to be done. So this is, are we going to use OAuth to authenticate with GitHub, or a GitHub personal access token? I usually like to do it with the personal access token because I can make it expire whenever I want to. But if you take a look at the servers in here, I can give it whatever name. In my case, I'll call it GitHub. I can call it Lino and it will still work. It doesn't care. But the URL is the most important part here, is that I have to send this through the StreamableHttp or the SSC, which has already been deprecated, but it will still work. HTTPS API githubcopilot.com/MCP, and don't forget that / as well at the end. Plus, this one is a little bit different. I will need to add a header that has an authorization key in it, and we will have to pass the bearer token space and then whatever personal access token you have generated in GitHub as well. So let's go ahead and first of all create a path. And the way to create a path, you go see where your picture is inside of GitHub, click on it, and we'll say settings right there. And then we'll go all the way down to what says developer settings. And then personal token, you have to use the fine-grained token. And I'm going to say generate a new token. You can call it whatever you want. We'll call it, for instance, MCP. There you go. Give it a nice description. And I'm going to go ahead and put this, let's say, under my Tahubo account. We'll make it expire in the next 7 days. I will actually delete it right after this video, so you won't have to worry about seeing my pad. It's okay. Alrighty. And I also went ahead, and about 2 minutes ago, I didn't need to do that on the camera. I went and created a brand new project. I didn't even add anything to it. It's called the YouTube demo. Alrighty. So that's a brand new repository. Has nothing in it, no issues, no actions, no projects, no wiki, nothing. It's completely empty. I just created one and made it public so everybody can see it. Completely empty. All right, if I go back in here, I am not going to actually open up that MCP for all my repositories, which they could be a significant amount, of course, some internal, some private, some public, depending on the organization, and so on. So I'm going to come in here for the only select repository, and hopefully I will see the one coming in from YouTube. Let me see. There it is. So I'm going to say it will only work on this one, the YouTube demo one. That's it. Also, you get to choose the permissions that you would like to allow that token to have access to. So you can do it based on the GitHub Actions, the administration, attestation. There are tons of things in here. We're going to keep it simple. Maybe we can do this on maybe deployments, environment. Issues might be easy. We'll do issues. Metadata is mandatory. It is required. You cannot turn it off. Of course, without the metadata, the system will not be able to get much information from GitHub at all. You can turn it off for pull requests. That's a good idea as well, in case you want to type something in English to cause a pull request, so the system can work with you on that. Receiving secrets or setting secrets, variables, webhooks. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Let me keep it simple. I'm going to remove that. We'll keep it just on issues in here. So you will notice two things I'm going to be doing. First of all, issues, I would like to make it also read and write, so I can create an issue, not only read and list the issues. And the metadata, like I said, is required and can only be read-only at this point. All right, let's go ahead and generate that token. And I'm going to say generate the token, yep. And that token in here, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. Let's put it somewhere that we can actually get back to it later, because once I move away from here, I'll never be able to see that one again. So that's okay. So let's minimize this, go back to the code. I'm going to go to the app settings. And maybe we'll put a comma after the OpenAI, and in here we'll call this one, we'll call it what? GitHub _pat. You can call it whatever you want. Oh, if I can spell, that would be great. There you go. Let's put it in a string. GitHub pat. Okay. And then this is not the correct one, so I'm going to delete this from here, and I'll paste the one I got from my path in there. And don't worry, I will delete that right after the video, so that's not a big deal. But now that I've saved it, now I can go back to my program and see what kind of function I need to add to make this work. All right, first thing first, right? I'm gonna need to come in here, and I'm gonna need to create a brand new variable, and we'll call this one, oops, I have an empty clipboard, okay. And we bring in a GitHub path. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to go grab it from my app settings.json, and it's called GitHub_path. Make sure it's spelled exactly the same way, like the way it is in the app settings.json. And we should be good to go. Now I can go down right underneath that first add file system MCP server. What happens if I do another await? Oops, let me go back a little bit. Await, and we will do add. How did I spell it there? All right, GitHub server. And this one, notice I can actually also pass the kernel. Let's say kernel builder. You put the semicolon. So I need to right click on it, and we'll say quick fix, and then generate the method. And hopefully all the way at the bottom, keeps wanting to actually change this for me. I don't know why, but that's okay. Good enough. Control S, and we'll go all the way down. And there it is. That is the new function that I have. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to take this entire code that I've written for the standard IO transport one. We'll say copy that. And I'm going to be putting all of it inside of here. And we'll see now what we can do to make it change. First of all, we know it's not going to be a standard IO client transport. So you can actually write a lot of code and do the new HTTP client transport, but you'll have to create a new HTTP client and all that. But I'm going to be lazy in here. I'm going to use the SseClientTransport. Even though the SSC actually has been deprecated, it is actually compatible with the StreamableHttp. So even though it says SseClient, it will be using the HTTP, StreamableHttp on the server side when it brings it in. It is compatible and it will work. But you'll notice once I use the SseClientTransport, there is nothing called command or argument. So you remember when we went back to the GitHub repository with the samples on the GitHub server, it had a name. So this obviously will be GitHub, for instance, or whatever you want to call it. This is not important. This is for you. And then instead of command, there is no npx or uv or Python. This is coming directly from a server. That's why we're using the StreamableHttp in here. So we know, even though command is not there, there is a new one called endpoint. So if I say endpoint equals new one, I'm going to go ahead and pass in the new URI for api.githubcopilot.com/mcp/. Remember, we got that from the sample that we looked at on the GitHub repository with the samples there. And of course, there is no arguments because I'm not running anything on my machine in here. So I'm going to remove this from here. but I need headers, right? So I'm going to say additional headers. There you go. Copilot could be very good about that. It's a new dictionary string, and I will need to, I don't need that, so I'm going to take this out. I'm going to need to create the array for the authorization. Actually, it's a string, we'll say authorization. There you go. And this would be equal, and we will say $, because I'm going to do interpolation. We'll say bear. It has to have a space, so you need to put a space in here. And I need to pass in the path right after it. All right, how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, this might not be enough for me. I'm going to go back up into the function. Yeah, I already got the GitHub path, so let me copy that into the clipboard. And I'm going to come in here with say comma, and we will pass the GitHub path as well. And when I go back down, I would like to bring it in here. It would be maybe a string, and we'll say GitHub path, and good enough. Control S. So now, oops, did I put it on the wrong one? Yeah, I put it on the wrong one, of course. So Control X this guy, we'll put it on this one. All right, sounds good. And we will do this. Okay. All right, so now the bearer, now I'd like to do the interpolation at this point. So we'll put the brackets, and here we'll say GitHub path. All right, excellent. So right now when I create the MCP client factory using the SseClientTransport, I'm passing it a name, an endpoint, which is correct. And I'm adding a new thing, which is the additional headers that has the bearer token that include my GitHub path. And if that is not correct, was missing, of course, you will not be able to authenticate with GitHub, and your communication using the MCP server will not do anything and will fail on the GitHub side. And the truth, there is nothing else to be done. It's the same thing, the way we actually go get the list of the tools that we will pass on to the LLM. And finally, I'm going to put a wrapper around the all the function calls inside of the MCP server. Let's say there is 30 different function tools inside of this GitHub MCP server. With this final line on line number 117, Semantic Kernel will actually put a wrapper around each one that has the kernel function attribute that will allow it to be called as a semantic kernel function, as a plugin function as well. Pretty easy. Hopefully, once you do it once or twice, you will know the difference between running it locally using standard I/O or using the StreamableHttp client. Both of them will work just fine. This one is probably the more logical one to use for the future, because you do not want always to bring in the entire code. And sometimes you don't have a choice. People do not want to share their internal code, so you will have to call it into a server to stream it back to you for the functionality itself. All right, let's quickly go ahead and find out in here. If I go to the YouTube demo, let's click on issues. I should not have any issues. Nope, there is nothing in here. It's completely empty. So we'll go back to our code one more time, and we'll go ahead and compile. We'll say save this first of all, and now we'll say .NET Run. And let's see if we can communicate with that. Notice that I have access to two different MCPs, one standard I/O and one HTTP streamable. Even though I'm using the SseClientTransport, it's still using that. Oh, I got an error. Let's see what the error is. An item with the same key has already been added, key F. Oh, I did not. Okay. So you notice here, when I set the file system and I added FS, I did not change that. You cannot have the same function name that will be passing to the LLM. So this one will say GH for GitHub. All right. So let's Control S, and we'll run it one more time. So CLS and .NET Run. Drums rolling, please. And right, it's asking, we'll say add an issue in what's the name? Okay, I have to give it also the full name of the repository, tahubu-ai / YouTube demo. Okay. Add an issue in tahubu-ai YouTube demo, because you can actually have multiple YouTube demos under a lot of different repositories. So you'll have to tell it exactly where to do that at. With the name, we'll say Lino found a bug. All right, and the description is, we'll say kaboom. everything crashed when I clicked hello. That's a good issue. All right, let's go ahead and give it a shot and see if it will work. Drums rolling, please. Right, there is so much stuff going on right now, but the issue Lino found a bug has been successfully created in the repositories. Now I can push enter to exit this, and we've done our job right. I should be able to come back in here and refresh this page. Look at that, Lino found a bug. If I click on it, kaboom, everything crashed when I clicked hello, and you can go from there. Of course, you can actually do pull requests. You can use it with the Git MCP server as well to do pushing and commits and fetching, and so it's amazing. So you don't have to be 100% certified on Git and GitHub. You can just write English pretty much, or whatever language you'd like to use to tell what your intentions are. I'll say fix that bug, commit it to the system, then pull a request and send it to the owner or the reviewer, for instance, and the system will go through all the different function calls inside of the MCP server for GitHub and will accomplish all the stuff for you automatically. Isn't that pretty cool? Well, I'm hoping that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.